Tracy Donegan podcast. Red light therapy isn't just for your face. It's also a game changer for the sensitive vaginal tissues and pelvic floor muscles, offering incredible healing from the inside out. If you're curious about cutting-edge wellness tools transforming women's health, you don't want to miss today's episode. I'm chatting with Frey from Fringe Heals about their incredible therapeutic pelvic wand, total game changer for fertility, postpartum healing and menopausal support. Liz shares how this easy-to-use device harnesses red, near-infrared and blue light to rejuvenate, restore and empower women's bodies at every stage. And if you're listening to this podcast, make sure you head over to the YouTube episode so you can see the pelvic wand for yourself. And don't forget to check out the show notes for an exclusive 10% discount. Hi everybody, you are very welcome to the next episode of the Tracy Donegan podcast. And today I am delighted to welcome Liz Frey, who's coming to us from Ontario, Canada, and is going to tell us about a really fantastic new red light device that Liz and her team have designed and created and have made it available for women around the world. And I am so excited because I have been using the wand myself, and I'm going to make sure I can turn it up, get the lights on. There we go. So this is the red light, and it also comes in, you can turn on blue light as well. So Liz, tell me, where did this idea come from?
Yeah, hey, nice to be here. Thanks for having me. So I will give credit where credit's due. Alison Evans, who is co-founder of Fringe, the company that I work with that makes, designs and manufactures this pelvic wand, is the one who has come up with this idea. And she approached me early on in the design stage. And then we've worked together in conjunction with a number of other pelvic health, pelvic floor physiotherapists to create this pelvic wand that offers light therapy and vibration therapy for women. So we went back and forth with a number of different designs, making sure that the actual, you'll notice kind of the slight contour of it, the weight of it, the amount of light that's emitted, all of these things, that the buttons are easily accessible to design the wand. But I will give credit to Alison because she's the one that has really spearheaded making the wand. But for myself, I was thrilled when she approached me to be a part of this, because I am a pelvic health physiotherapist here in Ontario, and I've worked with women for honestly over 15 years plus. I don't want to date myself, right? With pelvic health. And so I'm always looking to bring like an innovative tool or something that will help my clients further progress quicker than I can do just on my own with them. So it was a no-brainer realistically when she asked me if I wanted to, be a part of this.
Yeah, it is, because I have, full disclosure, I have tested a few of these wands, and when I came across the Fringe wand, okay, it's designed by women.
Yeah.
It has significant input from experts in pelvic floor, experts who know women's bodies. Mm-hmm. Because some of the products that I see, and that you do see on Amazon, and just with, it's a red light and a blue light, and that's what you get. And I think there is a huge need for education out there with the general public of, okay, so we have red light, but your product, the Fringe Wand, is the only one that has near infrared.
Yeah.
Why is the near infrared important?
So let's just regroup with the three lights first, the three different wavelengths of light that are offered in the wand, and then we'll chat about why each of them are important and why we decided to keep or to include them in this product. So when we look at red light is the red light that's emitted approximately in this wand is 630 nanometers, like wavelength of light, and this is considered like a bioactive, a wavelength of light that your body can absorb and then use for health and nutrition, if you will, in the cells. So red light does not penetrate as deep as near infrared light. So near infrared light, the average nanometers of wavelength in this wand is about 830 nanometers. So it is absorbed and then penetrates a little bit deeper than the red. So if we're looking at red and near infrared, red would be, I think of it as really productive and really beneficial for more of the tissue rejuvenation piece. So if we're thinking about this vaginally, that would be women who have fragile tissue that we see in menopause. It would be people that have a lot of tissue dryness, again, that we see in menopause. Or tissue atrophy, right? Like a wasting away of the superficial sort of muscular layer. Whereas the near infrared light penetrates and is absorbed a little bit deeper in our tissue. So if women are dealing with inflammation or pain that might be from a deeper source, right? Some women with endometriosis or different pain producing issues, then I would say that the near infrared light might be the light that we would want to target, or the wavelength of light that we would want to target. So I think your original question, I went on a tangent there, was the fact that we have the near infrared light and that's a unique feature to our wand, but that's why we want to have both the red and the near infrared. And of course there is overlap. It's not as though only near infrared, does X, Y, Z, or red, what have you. There's an overlap between the two, but I think it's really important to have both of them just based on the depth of penetration and what we can see in the research really with the different wavelengths of light.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up endometriosis, because I work with a lot of women that are dealing with fertility challenges. So when I saw your product and research it, and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic now, because not just the fact that it's going to help with pain, but the fact that we know that red light therapy, that photobiomodulation, modulates inflammation, and there's kind of emerging research looking at using red light therapy or laser therapy on kind of the outside, on the abdomen, to modulate that inflammatory response as well. And what about the blue light as well?
Yeah, so blue light therapy is going to be, it's like a, let's say, lower wavelength of light. So sort of around that, for us, 415 nanometer wavelength of light. And it does not penetrate as deep as red or near infrared light. And where we see the value or the utility of that is when we're looking at antibacterial or sort of fungal, I'll say, in the actual vaginal area. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're looking at how we can, how we can influence, I guess, the microbiome of the vagina. So if someone suffers from chronic yeast infections like Candida, UTIs, like different like pathogens, and that is directly related to the microbiome, then blue light therapy can be very valuable there. So we wanted to include that, so we had a really well-rounded offering and can help more people.
Yeah, one thing that I again, like, I'm looking for something I don't like about the wand. Yeah, no, actually, I think we've already talked. There is one thing I don't like about it. We need the buttons to light up. But that's another.
I'll get that feedback. I think as we have other iterations, that might be down the pipeline.
But one thing that I was also impressed with is the fact that you chose a blue wavelength that is associated with, because when we look at the blue wavelengths and their high energy intensity, that it will target the pathogens, and those microbes will take that light on board, and it stops them replicating. But you chose a wavelength that is not going to be incredibly harmful to the good microbes that we want to keep that we want to keep everything balanced. So yes, we can, this is a great wavelength and it's really well evidenced for, that blue light and for, yeast. I think the Candida, I think they're looking at BV as well. And
absolutely.
And there's some really fabulous research coming out of the University of Tennessee who are at the moment looking at the use of blue wavelengths and on strep. So, and when I met one of the researchers at the PBM conference last year, and their presentation was just phenomenal because they were showing how the use of, again, specific wavelengths, particularly the blue wavelengths, could make microbes more accepting of antibiotics. So there was actually reducing the resistance, because that's a huge problem, that the resistance to antibiotics, but they were able to show that specific wavelengths will actually make those microbes more, it'll make the antibiotic work better because the microbes will actually take it on board again. I thought that's phenomenal. So for me, midwife brain is thinking we need a really great option for women who have group B strep, especially if they're going to a facility that does, the very quick testing. So you can have testing in labor to see, is this, do you have group B strep now? Is because it's such a transitory change in the microbiome. And at the moment, the only option that women have is either they don't take the antibiotics, and that's quite scary for a lot of women, or they take the antibiotics and then that wipes out their own microbiome and their babies. And it'll take, I think the latest research is that it will, if somebody has antibiotics in labor or if they've had a cesarean in particular, because they're not getting access to that full body of microbes from mom, that with exclusive breastfeeding, we can get the baby's microbiome back to a similar, as if it was a vaginal birth without antibiotics, but it takes a couple of months. And we're only scratching the surface now, learning about how does early use of antibiotics affect our babies, and their long-term health. So it's it's such a fascinating area, and I'm so thrilled to see that there's so many great brains working on this at the moment, and bringing together all of these solutions really for women's health. And you mentioned using it for vaginal atrophy, and because there's one area that, again, I hadn't really considered, was that a lot of women who are breastfeeding and find, especially if they're not taking estrogen, that they find that they've got lubrication issues, painful sex, and I thought, this is another way of, again, it's non-hormonal, which again will be so helpful for so many women, that it's not hormonal and it's safe, and our body wants it. Our body wants this light, and we're so, as I say, on everyone I talk to about light, our body are so starved of this light, and we've just become, we're indoors under artificial lighting for so much of the time, and then in evening time on our phones and LED devices and lights, and it's shutting down our melatonin. We're not getting out in the sun, so we're not getting, I call it the real vitamin D. We get, everyone's supplementing with vitamin D because they've realized, yes, everyone is deficient. But then they're going outside and they've got, layers of sunscreen on and sunglasses. I'm like, no, we need that really safe exposure to sun, because that impact on, especially around fertility hormones, reproductive health, is massive. Huge, but nobody's talking about that. We need the sunlight, but if we can't get sunlight, this is very helpful.
That's how I chat about it. Like when I'm in practice with my postpartum mamas, who have maybe had some trauma, like some tearing with birth, or had a C-section and therefore have definitely, had surgery essentially. I say, let's give these cells a little bit more energy. That's how I sort of even introduce the idea of light therapy. Because what the research has shown, as you know, but is that our mitochondria, the little energy houses of our cells, there's like a cellular reaction that occurs within the mitochondria when our tissues absorb light. And one of the byproducts of this cascade of reactions is ATP, which is energy. And so when I think about like healing postpartum, yes, please. I would love to have extra energy, aimed at the tissues where there has been potential trauma. So that's one of the big things that I introduce when I'm talking about light and light energy and why someone postpartum might want to use the pelvic wand. But second to that, when we look at the use of the wand for, I'll say tissue strengthening, like muscular strengthening, postpartum, that's another huge time. Like that's why many women come into my practice, is that they might be suffering from some incontinence, like urinary leakage. The muscles are not working the way they did before birth, right? That's the big one. The incontinence will be what brings people in. But also some people will say, I have this sense of heaviness. I have this sense of what I will call prolapse, right? Or I'll potentially, and maybe it's not what you would even grade as prolapse yet. But women know, they feel internally that something is different or something is not functioning the way it usually did, prior to giving birth. And so we can use light therapy to give more energy to our muscles in that area for actual regeneration. Combine that with some exercises, which is what I would already be potentially prescribing to these women, then we're off to the races. I think that we will see, and we do, I see it in my practice, but results sooner, right? Because we're adding energy to the system. The research also shows that red and near infrared light therapy increases collagen and elastin production. And so when we're looking at collagen and elastin, those are the basis of our tissues for integrity, for strength, right? So if we look at increasing energy to the cells, increasing collagen and elastin production, and then lastly, I'll speak about blood flow. Red and near infrared light therapy, part of this cascade of reactions that occurs at a cellular level, is to increase blood flow to the area. And that's done through vasodilation and angiogenesis, the production of sort of new capillaries or new blood work, if you will. So if someone, and I wish this was around postpartum for myself, my children are a little bit older, but if someone had kind of proposed to me, hey, we can increase the energy, we can increase blood flow, which is oxygen and nutrients to the cells, and then we can also upregulate the elastin and collagen production in the area where you are feeling like you are weaker or your muscles are not contracting or relaxing the way you'd like them to be, et cetera, et cetera. Holy smokes. Yes, please. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. It's just, when I think of, I think this whole industry is just expanding at such an incredible rate. And I'm so appreciative that there are, women like yourself and the team at Fringe that have really put a lot of thought into this device, choosing the wavelengths, just even the feel of it. I have tested other products, and even because it's like when you buy some stuff off, Amazon, and it's some random blue light that, and is this not gonna wipe out my complete microbiome, because it's and they're not third party tested. And it was.
I can speak to a few things with the design, like you mentioned that. But you'll notice if people are watching versus listening, but there's a very gentle curve to it, which is allows entrance in a intravaginal entrance in a really comfortable manner. You'll notice that the circumference of it is not huge by any stretch. So I'll have women who might have to work with a dilator initially, if you have a lot of tissue tone, postpartum or menopausal, what have you. But then very quickly, women will be able to graduate to using this wand. It is not meant to be intimidating by any stretch, right? Then you'll also notice that there are light, like LED chips, if you will, LED lights through the entire shaft of the pelvic wand. So it's not just at a certain portion of the wand, but the entire wand. So if someone is only comfortable just having the tip even touch the entrance of their vagina, that will also have an effect. Like we don't have to have the entire wand inserted. And as you're comfortable, sure, you could have the entire wand inserted, but it's not necessary, right? So I think that those are some of the pieces, especially when I'm working with someone postpartum who might be a little bit anxious about having anything enter, their vagina, and for someone menopausal who is already feeling a dryness or a sense of discomfort in the area. Maybe someone has a lot of tone in their pelvic floor muscles. So it was like, as you had mentioned, a lot of thought and back and forth with different pelvic health therapists, testing the product to make sure that it did feel like comfortable. In terms of safety, we've talked about how like lasers were what has been used in the past and shown very good evidence with having all of the benefits of light therapy. But now LED lights are what's used, and the evidence is showing that you will have the same response with your tissues with LED light, which is way safer, right? And obviously for home use than laser, which is what was used in the past, right?
And specifically with those mucosal tissues, because they don't have that top layer to penetrate through, so that I guess those mucosal tissues just drink it up, literally.
Absolutely. So, and then like second to that, there's also like say a 10-minute timer on it. So you I'll say can't. I mean, it would be hard to over-treat, if you will, right? So there were a lot of different kind of back and forth iterations put into the design of the wand to make sure that it was not intimidating, that it is safe, and it does what it's supposed to do. You've already mentioned it is third-party tested. So the wavelength of light that is being emitted is actually being emitted, right? It's not like a gimmicky sort of, I'll say sex tool or toy or what have you that you might see on Amazon or on the internet. That's not it. It is truly a medical tool to help women.
And just what you were mentioning there about, the fact that, and you also have diodes, I like at the very tip as well. So for somebody who was, because I'm thinking, a postpartum mom, so generally the recommendations are, you don't put anything into the vagina for the first 6 weeks, whatever. But, people are going to do what they're going to do. But how do you see this working for somebody who has, because what I understand about light therapy is the sooner we can get the light on the tissues, the better. So let's just say, and I'm trying to figure out how this will look, if I was in Ireland and it's a public ward where you might have 6 women with just curtains around them, and this is quite bright even under the sheets, So they wouldn't even have to insert it. No, they can just put it against the vulva and the tissue. That will help
so
with.
Use it external by all means prior to being getting kind of the green light, if you will. No pun intended with the light saying green light.
Yeah.
But the okay from your medical healthcare professional for actual having anything internal. So I suggest women start with an external, and remember that it's not just affecting the tissues that it's touching, it's affecting the entire area. What I think about in terms of the energy, the ATP that's being produced, is that it's almost like a pinball machine where there's energy kind of bouncing around within that area. So it doesn't have to be touching the exact spot, right? I mean, obviously the beauty of this being an intravaginal wand is that we can get as close to, if not touching, the surfaces that we're aiming to be having an impact on. However, still external will have an impact by all means. And you can even just have it touching the entrance, not going in, but just touching. If someone's had an episiotomy or has had tearing, there's an external component to that, right? So we can even target that. Women with C-sections, this is actually a beautiful curve that pretty much follows many of the C-section scars that I see coming into my practice. So you can just lay it on top of the scar.
Yes.
Right? So by all means, it can be used externally and or internally.
Yeah, and a great point as well about the using it post-cesarean is that Looking at this, like after any kind of surgery and perineal as well, edema. So this will help, increase circulation. So once we reduce the edema, then we tend to reduce pain as well. So that, and we're looking at like the new research is like, stay away from the padsicles. Don't be putting ice down there, because what it does is it interrupts the inflammatory response. We need the inflammatory response. We just don't want it, continuing. But the ice, although it feels lovely and soothing, if we're using it, we are interrupting the inflammatory response. We want that response to come to completion, which this can really help with. Yeah, so I think, this is another like tool to add to your birth bag for
how I describe it to my women that will come into my practice that that are pregnant, going to give birth, is if we can use light to reduce, as you said, the inflammation. What I call it is congestion, right? So I say postpartum, there is a lot of inflammation, edema, congestion in the area. So if we can use light therapy to reduce congestion, that will allow more blood flow, allow more circulation, your entire lymph system to flow better, then you are going to be able to heal, I'll say faster. I put it in air quotes, like there's no timeline associated with that, but faster, and you will have less discomfort associated. So again, most of the moms I see are like, oh, perfect, right? Sign me up.
And as well, for someone who's had a cesarean birth, the blue light externally for along the suture line for if because infection is a big issue. And again, I'm thinking, okay, this now is going to take me down 10 different rabbit holes. With the cesarean birth as well, so we've got the nice curve. And I think there is still this idea that, if I have a cesarean birth, I'm not going to have any pelvic floor problems. And so I think there's multiple uses. Yes.
Yeah. So, I'll speak to hypertonicity, like a lot of tension in the pelvic floor. We can see both. We can see hyper, like a lot of tension, or hypo, less tension in the pelvic floor. Those would be the kind of two ways that I would divide what we will feel or have in the pelvic floor musculature postpartum with vaginal and or C-section births. I must say in my practice, I will feel more of a hypertonicity post C-section versus hypo. So if there's a lot of tension or sort of pulling, if you will, within those tissues, the red light therapy can be fantastic, and it will increase the blood flow and increase the oxygen and nutrients to those tissues to allow them to sort of relax. I combine that with vibration, and we haven't even touched on that yet, Tracy. But the pelvic wand, I know, it keeps going. The pelvic wand has 4 different levels of vibration, right? And so I will ask my C-section mamas to use very low level vibration, right? Because low level vibration has been shown to reduce tension in muscles. And that's not just our pelvic muscles, that's muscles in general, right? So if we can combine some light therapy with vibration therapy to reduce tension in our muscles, then we can have potentially a more functional muscle that can contract and relax. Of course, this does not, and I always want to mention this, but this does not take over. The pelvic wand is not instead of going to see a pelvic health therapist, right? It's used in conjunction with. It's your at-home tool to help you with the, I'll say, exercises or stretches or breathing or whatever has been prescribed to you by your pelvic health therapist. Because they're the ones that might give you insight and education around whether or not you do have a lot of tone or not enough tone, or why you are feeling heavy or feeling tight or dry or. And so I would want to just make sure we're clear on that this isn't instead of, but this can be really helpful for women to use at home in conjunction with their pelvic health therapist's recommendations.
We're assuming that women can get access to pelvic floor therapists. That's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other, yeah. But I will say some women will maybe they're just not comfortable going to see a pelvic health therapist, and that's okay. So then you could use this tool. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be prescribed to you. You could for sure use this tool in the comfort of your home and work with it with whatever you feel is happening, right, in your pelvic floor. You could use it if you had a virtual consult with a pelvic health therapist, because since the pandemic, I'd say virtual therapy is a thing, right? Many people offer it. And so often even just hearing the different subjective history that a woman has, one can say, oh, you know what, I think it sounds like XYZ, try this, try that. So it could be used in that fashion as well, right? And the other thing is the access in terms of finances. Some people are not going to be able to afford to access a healthcare professional, right? Just bottom line. And so if they could have a tool that they could use at home and do their research and I'll say heal or progress or what have you, then there's an opportunity for it, right?
Yeah.
But most women, I would recommend using it in conjunction with a pelvic health therapist if that's possible for them.
Fantastic. Liz, have we missed anything?
I think we could do probably another 10 or 15 podcasts with little Q&A and so on. But I think this was a really great introduction to the wand, when we would be using it with pre and postpartum, the way it offers 3 different wavelengths of light, the way it offers vibration therapy, and what conditions it would really be useful for. So I think we've covered a lot. Absolutely.
We have, and tell me what's the feedback like from the women that you're working with?
Honestly, it's been phenomenal. I have a fairly small physiotherapy practice, and from the women that I'll say prescribed or given a wand to, what have you, they night and day. They've loved it. And even the biggest skeptic, if you will, has come back to me and said, oh my gosh, thank you. It's worked. And I can speak to myself. I've obviously tried and used the wand. And I think it was the most profound piece for me was that I felt that my pelvic floor was so much stronger when I combined using the light and vibration therapy with my actual home exercise, I'll say, regime. And I've done pelvic floor strengthening I have 3 children, okay? So I have done pelvic floor strengthening exercises just as part of my standard, exercise regime for years. And when I added the wand, and my youngest child, let me be clear, is 10 years old. So this isn't like I'm a new mama, and it's never too late, I guess is my point there. When I added the wand and I used it as I should, which is 3 to 7 times a week for 10 minutes combined with my exercises, there was actually a profound difference in my pelvic floor strength. And I'm so excited to report that because it's never too late. And that was my own account with it.
Yeah, my youngest is turning 15 very soon, so I've been using it for a couple of weeks, and it's great. I can't say enough things about it. Really, it's fabulous, and I'm just excited that it's out there now, and women can access it and really kind of take their health into their own hands, really, and especially pelvic health. And we talk about postpartum depletion. I would have. Yeah, there's all kinds of uses for this for postpartum. I'm thinking, nipple soreness might be something we could test with as well. So again, increasing ATP and the blue light on the nipple. Now I know that's going to be a whole other research project we're going to have to do, but again, seeing there is so much potential there for such a simple but well thought out product. I think it's going to make it such a, as you already, a profound difference in so many women's lives, and here's to happy, healthy women.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining me. This has been fascinating. I'm looking forward to, I guess, hearing back from the women that I've recommended it to as well, and I will be sure to share the testimonials and how women are enjoying it.
Well,
But
if anyone has questions, right, beyond this podcast, anyone can feel free to email me at any point. My email is Liz, Liz, at fringeheals.com. Also following us on Instagram. There's a lot of educational pieces that come out, and anyone can DM. It will get passed to me and I can follow up. So it's at Fringe Heals is our Instagram. But those are two really good ways to get in touch if anyone does have questions.
fantastic. Thank you, Liz. It's been, eye-opening. Really enjoyed chatting to you and learning more about this brilliant
Awesome.
product.
Thanks so much, Tracy.
Thank you, Liz. We will, and I will add your details and everything into the show notes, so people know where they can find you. And thanks. It's been great.
Perfect.
We'll talk again soon.
Chat soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Remember, empowerment begins with knowledge. If you enjoyed our time together and want more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. So stay inspired, stay informed, and until next time, take care of yourself.